find yourself wondering if a director's astrological sign affects their filmmaking style and the stories they're drawn to? No? Well, I do. Welcome to Cinema Astrology, where I'm going to be dissecting each zodiac sign's film directors and seeing if their zodiac sign influences their filmmaking. And this is part 2. And today we're going to be talking about the second sign of the zodiac wheel, which are Tauruses. And I'm very excited to talk about Tauruses in general because I have a Taurus brother. And I'd say that they're the least problematic zodiac sign. I've never seen a zodiac list where people put Taurus as their least favorite sign. So I chose 4 films by 4 directors that wrote and directed their movies because I want to make sure that they're directors who have, a lot of their personality in the films that they made. So the directors I chose are Wes Anderson, Juzo Itami, Sofia Coppola, and Jane Campion. And this was really exciting for me because I was able to do 2 female directors, unlike in my Aries video, because it's honestly hard to find female directors in general. So if I have the chance, I'm always gonna try to do half women, half men. So in my last video, I dissected 5 Aries directors and the films they've made, and I noticed that the reoccurring theme and tone was anger and violence. And this time with the Tauruses, the one super prominent trait that's just undeniable is that they're obsessed with aesthetics. So I'm gonna keep saying aesthetic, 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 visuals, and also just like a sense of beauty. And if you guys know about the character Ferdinand, who's a bull, and Tauruses are bulls, he's a bull that doesn't want to do bullfighting, and he just wants to lay in the grass, appreciate the flowers around him, and bask in laziness and bask in beauty. That is literally a Taurus. So you're also gonna hear a lot about that they're very chill, like zoned out, unbothered, and they just kind of want to eat fancy cakes, wear nice slippers, and kick their feet up on a table, and I respect that.
So the next zodiac sign on the list to make is Taurus. What ingredients should we use to make a Taurus? Make them an earth sign, but ruled by Venus, so they're sensitive to everything, but also throw some stubbornness in there so people don't know that they're sensitive. Yeah, and give them like an eye for perfection, but make them kind of like tired, like they're not gonna go do anything. We don't need them to change the world. Okay, that sounds really hard. Can we give them anything to make their life like enjoyable? Good point. How about food?
I'm gonna start with the most iconic Taurus director, and I would say one of the most iconic directors in general, and that is Wes Anderson. And I'm sure everyone who loves cinema has heard of Wes Anderson and has seen one of his movies. All his movies have like this romantic, nostalgic essence to them, like you're watching a children's book brought to life. And he's definitely most known for his aesthetic. Like if you saw a still of his film, you would immediately know that it's Wes Anderson because he just has this certain color palette, like pinks, yellows, pale colors, a lot of structure to his stills, like things are in the middle. It kind of feels like a perfect set, and definitely that's where most of his efforts are put into. The fact that Wes Anderson is so in tune with his visuals is very Taurus-like, because Taurus is ruled by Venus, the planet of love, the planet of luxury, the planet of aesthetics. So the fact that he pays so much attention to make his films beautiful is very Taurus-like, because Tauruses need beauty around them. They need to have luxury. Like they appreciate silk, they appreciate a fancy mattress, they appreciate, like having a good curtain. They're very materialistic too in that way. So don't be surprised if like a Taurus shops and doesn't care how much money they've spent. This man is undeniably in tune with the beauty of his films, and even when you look at him, like the way he dresses, he looks straight out of his movies because his suits, the color palettes of his clothes are like perfectly tailored to him, and you can like put him in his world and it would just make a lot of sense. Wes Anderson's way of directing is very direct directing, which means that it's evident in his movies that there's a man behind the camera like controlling every aspect of the movie. Because some directors like try to make their films feel documentarian, like there's not that much meddling with anything. But with Wes Anderson, like he tries to have, his personality instilled in the aesthetics, the dialogue, the characters. So his audience knows what he wants them to know, sees what he wants them to see, and feels what he wants them to feel. Other directors will keep you in suspense by holding information back and strategically distributing details when advantageous. But Wes Anderson willingly hands over information in a succinct manner. He doesn't try to trick you with his plot, and he has no intention of pulling the rug out from under you. Wes Anderson is more interested in being clear than anything else. This is very Taurian because there's no sense of deliberate complexity or nuanced. He's just very straightforward, and that really fits with like a Taurus's sense of trying to avoid conflict and wanting to be in the comfort zone. He's also known for reoccurring cast members such as Bill Murray, Angelica Houston, Owen and Luke Wilson, Willem Dafoe, Jason Schwartzman, etc. And what I love about this trait of Wes Anderson is that he doesn't only just always keep his friends booked and busy with jobs, but when they're filming the movies, he literally will rent out a hotel, create a home. It's like being in a theater boot camp. I find this to be very Taurus-like because he doesn't just create a beautiful atmosphere and visual aesthetic, but he's able to nurture all of this by treating his cast members like family. He's not only meticulous in the beauty, but he's meticulous in the relationships he builds, and he doesn't need to live with his castmates. Like, he could just direct them, go home, move on with his life, but he literally lives with them. And this is going to be a reoccurring trait with all the Taurus directors. A lot of them tend to work with their loved ones, have reoccurring cast members, and to me that just shows like their Taurus generosity and warmth.
It shows all these people that are in your orbit. They include Kate Moss, includes Anderson, Wes Anderson. It includes obviously your Spike. It includes a range of people that are almost like extensions of they're friends, but extensions of some kind of loose-knit family.
Well, I think most people in film business, you like to work with the same people that you work well with, and I like to work with my friends because you spend so much time working that, my music supervisor is a friend of mine, Brian Reitzel, and I love working with him. We have things in common. I just done a video with Kate Moss for the White Stripes, so that's why she's in the web.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson has a huge catalog of notable movies, so it was kind of a journey to pick one, but I chose Moonrise Kingdom because it's the first film that he directed without his frequent collaborator Owen Wilson. And he also directed this with Roman Coppola, who is also a Taurus, and he's actually the brother of Sofia Coppola, who I'm also going to talk about, who's also a Taurus. So they have multiple films together actually, such as Asteroid City, French Dispatch, and recently The Phoenician Scheme. If you haven't seen Moonrise Kingdom, it's set on an island off the coast of New England in the 1960s. A young boy and girl fall in love and they're moved to run away together. Various factions of the town mobilize to search for them, and the town is turned upside down, which might not be such a bad thing. So from the jump, the movie exudes the iconic Wes Anderson aesthetic we all associate with the director. And for me, it works even more because the story is following two 12-year-old hopeless romantics who are deeply in love. And the candy-colored, lush storybook feeling of the film is very in tune with what I would expect a lot of imaginative kids to see in their heads when they're daydreaming. So Wes Anderson has so much fun with the settings in this movie because you're not solely following Sam and Susie throughout. You also go to Edward Norton's character as the Boy Scout leader, and you're seeing them trying to find Sam, like learning about his character as they go because he's an orphan. And though the kids kind of just bully him for being an orphan and it's played off for laughs in the beginning, they start to realize, like, why are we so horrible to this kid? Like, he's an orphan. What has he done to us? And we also get to see Susie's family's perspective, and her mom is played by Frances McDormand. And they have like this typical teenaged girl and mother dynamic where you just don't get each other and like you just always bicker. And she's also going through it because she's having a little scandal with the police officer of the town. And that relationship develops throughout. But I just love how, like you're seeing these two kids on an adventure. You have the Boy Scouts looking around. And then you have Frances McDormand just being really over it, but still obviously caring enough to then team up with the Boy Scouts and then lead to this like climactic scene that I didn't expect. It's a big thunderstorm, and it's really, really adorable how Wes Anderson depicts a thunderstorm because it literally feels like it's a dollhouse set. You're aware of the proppiness of everything and that it's clearly like a miniature and it's not a real dam. But that's just what's so beautiful about Wes Anderson films, is that he is loud and proud about these elements, and he always has fun with these parts of cinema. He keeps that art alive. I just want to point these numerous settings out because it's not just visually very adorable and storybook-like. Every setting in this film feels like a little land you'd pass by in like a Disneyland ride. Like those storybook rides where there's little sets and you're just like on a boat going by them and you're just like appreciating everything. That's how these settings feel to me. What I love about this film's ending is that it applauds the hopeless romanticism. Like we saw these kids go through it. We saw that their families add to them going through it, and also lack of family. But at the end, like, everything is wrapped up in a really pink, pretty bow. We have them accepting that Susie and Sam are in love, so he's visiting her without having to like hide, write her letters, and, you know, be distant. And he almost becomes part of her family because he's adopted by Bruce Willis. And I really appreciate this because it feels like he's rooting for the hopeless romantics, and he's not trying to like tell this story of don't fall in love at a young age and run away because it'll like ruin your family and you'll be separate. You know, it's not like a life lesson where he's trying to make us feel bad about that. It's just this really cute, charming homage to nostalgia, to childhood, to romance. The whole point is to just be unapologetically goo goo gaga about nostalgia, love, childhood, and reminisce in that innocence. We talked about the romance, we talked about the visuals. Now I'm gonna get into something that I don't think Tauruses are that good at when it comes to their movies, and that is dialogue. Yeah, so none of these movies really left me thinking of the quotes from the movie. It was more so the visuals. Like when I close my eyes and I think of a Wes Anderson movie, Campion movie, Coppola movie, Sofia Coppola, I just see the beauty of their films. I don't hear like a quote. And I feel this way about Wes Anderson films because a lot of the dialogue kind of seems like it came out of a book, like he's just copy and pasting book dialogue. So when they speak, it almost doesn't feel human. It feels very caricature-y, and that adds to my zoning outness because my brain doesn't even want to perceive how whimsical everybody is because they look so whimsical. So I'm kind of being overdosed by this like 12-layer icing cake. And I don't want to eat more of it, so I'm just appreciating the icing. I don't want to like deal with the layers, the strawberries, it's pretty, and that's all that I care about.
Starting from when I was 2 years old, my dad would get his VHS and film our Christmas morning every single year. And for some reason, I never wanted to open my presents. I just wanted chocolate cake.
Oh my gosh! When we're done opening our presents, can we have a piece of cake?
Is that all you think about?
I just had an ulterior motive, and it was chocolate. And it kind of still is. So, there's the story.
So Wes Anderson, romantic, visually strong, and has a weird sense of humor. There's another director I could think of that has a lot of those similar traits, and that is Juzo Itami. Who's next? So Juzo Itami is a really underrated Japanese director, and I'm kind of gonna give you like a little bit of a summary to him, who he is, his impact, because his sense of filmmaking is very particular. So Juzo Itami is known for Tampopo, which I'm gonna talk about today, but he has so many fun films that with this quote will give you a sense of what they're about. So Itami had this to say: "The Japanese are a people who for a long time have wanted to become Americans." He deemed this phenomenon to have come from Japan's loss in the World War, similar to that of Stockholm Syndrome, of which he was very critical. In fact, the entire collection of Itami's cinema was effectively commentary on what he saw as the many flaws of Japanese society. So unfortunately, Itami passed away in a very tragic way. In 1997, he was found dead in the streets with a suicide note claiming that he cheated on his wife, which would be very absurd because his wife is in every single one of his movies. But in 2008, a Yakuza member came out and said that they killed him, and this would kind of align with the fact that he tried to make films about the Yakuza and even made one about them, and he got a lot of threats to a point where they tried to kill him. Unfortunately, that's what happened. That's his fate. That's how his life ended. But the fact that Itami even made a film about the Yakuza, knowing how dangerous they are and that it would threaten his life, just shows his commitment to trying to, depict Japanese societal flaws and, still have fun with it. He wasn't it wasn't in a way that was abusive, that was coming off as him hating his own culture. As we get into Tampopo, you'll see that he had such a distinct, wondrous style that it was beloved by, multiple cultures. So Tampopo takes the concept of spaghetti western and goes literal with it because it's about ramen and spaghetti and ramen. So let me give you a brief summary about the movie. In this humorous ode to the joys of food, the main story is about trucker Goro, who rides into town like a modern Shane to help Tampopo set up the perfect noodle soup restaurant. Woven into this main story are a number of smaller stories about the importance of food. So Tampopo is essentially an ode to food. And there's no better person to make this kind of movie than a Taurus. So one of the most stereotypical thing about Tauruses that people talk about is that they love food, that they love snacks, they're couch potatoes, all they care about is eating and just enjoying snacking. So the fact that the most famous film about food is made by a Taurus scratches the right part of my brain. Like, it just makes so much sense.
Okay. Yeah. I'm such a buttered noodles girl, but nothing really does taste as good as chocolate. You drown your sorrows, and for a second you're like, this is actually better.
The most violent director is an Aries, Quentin. And then like the film about food and lust for food, how important it is in our lives, like actually appreciating it as this undeniable thing that we all love and relate to and have in everyday life, is made by a Taurus. I mean, how do you explain that?
Relationships will cheat on you. Family will disown you. Pizza? That's forever.
So we talked about Taurus's comfort zone, how they create a family out of a group of people very easily. And I feel like this is exuded in Tampopo's tone, because Tampopo's play with genre utilizes our familiarity and nostalgia, because it simultaneously is an ode to the spaghetti western genre, which was a big part of many people's childhood, while also being an ode to food, which all of us can resonate with. I mean, it's like the epitome of the scene from Ratatouille, when Anton Ego eats the ratatouille and like goes back to his childhood. This movie is an ode to that feeling. So if you both grew up with spaghetti westerns and love food, then it's like he's just finding like peak comfort. I have to shout out one of my favorite Taurus directors because it kind of pertains to this subject. George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, is also a Taurus. He's kind of like a reverse Juzo Itami, because a lot of Star Wars lore and story structure is influenced from samurai movies because he grew up with them. So, you know, we have Itami being influenced by Western media, and then a Western man, aka George Lucas, being influenced by Japanese media. And a lot of George's movies have like clear influences from, you know, pop culture iconography. And again, it's very comforting when you watch it because you're immediately taken back to your childhood, like playing with action figures. There's also the sense of him staying true to the hero's journey, like using classical structures for his characters. And because I'm talking about George, and we've briefly mentioned this with Wes Anderson and his lack of dialogue skills, George, amazing at visuals, amazing at world building, you know, like you leave Star Wars feeling like you just went to a whole different universe. But the dialogue, like once he had full control of that, aka the prequels, Jesus. I mean, no one remembers the prequels for the dialogue. It's like the most hated on aspect of the films.
I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too. They're like animals. And I slaughtered them like animals.
It's, you know, funny too, because you wouldn't expect the man to be so into romance, because Star Wars is a sci-fi film, right? That's, and I know, a family drama in space, but he is very Shakespearean influence. So again, we talked about Taurus as being ruled by Venus, being into love. So the fact that when this man had full control just made it a full-blown love story, I love that, even though it didn't age so well, but I just had to say that.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Another similarity between Juzo Itami and Wes Anderson is that they have like a middle school boy sense of humor. So it makes sense for Taurus's humor to be simple, because their humor isn't going to be like Succession, where you have Shiv, Roman, and Kendall bantering and like really complex, witty dialogue that takes a bit more, you know, intellect to understand.
I'm the eldest boy! I am the eldest boy! And you know, it mattered to him. He wanted this to go on.
Well, I mean, she's the bloodline, though.
What? I'm the bloodline? We're all fucking
No, I
bloodlines.
just mean if you're gonna play that card, Dad's view was yours weren't real.
What the fuck did you just say?
Well, just not real. Real. Well, that's just what Dad said. I'm just saying what Dad said.
Well, don't say it, you fucking cock.
They are a pair of randos. One is a buy-in. The other is half Rabba, half some filing cabinet guy, right?
It's more like Diarrhea and Big Kid coded, so like the stinky cheese touch type of humor where you're laughing at a molded cheese on the ground. You know, it's simple, but it's still funny. So there's also this element of working with familiar faces that is maintained with Juzo Itami's approach. For example, his wife, Nobuko Miyamoto, is in every single one of his movies, and they were known to be a very loving couple. It's really, really sweet to see because he casts her in these roles that are very touching. You know, it's like we're watching a woman try to open her own ramen shop and everyone's supporting her. You know, she's trying really hard to make it work and you're really rooting for her. It's like a woman Rocky because there's still heart to everything, but it makes sense with the cultural context of it all. So I really found that endearing, and it reminded me of how Wes Anderson always maintains the same cast. How far does this movie go into love and food? Well, I did not expect this, even though I'd seen the GIF on Tumblr without knowing many times. But this movie literally has explicit scenes with food, and I'm gonna get into some of them. And with, you know, the love scenes or just the explicit scenes in these Taurus movies, there's a lot more lust to them. And this isn't just lust, it's lust with food. So it's like, it couldn't be more Taurus. The film begins and ends with perhaps the most striking of these vignettes, which feature a high-rolling, well-dressed gangster. Koji Yakusho's gangster is characterized by his fondness for food-related sexual encounters, alongside more typical opulent interests. Shellfish, oysters, whipped cream, and an egg all serve a distinctly titillating purpose in these moments. Food is foreplay, with Itami's playful and suggestive scenes only serving to reinforce the particular mundane magic that food offers us daily. Besides the explicit scenes, there's a really touching love story between Goro and Tampopo, and what I love about this interaction between the two and the development of their relationship is that Itami utilizes set design to show the growth of their dynamic and the growth of Tampopo as a character. So the ramen shop at first is really rickety-dickety, like there's no budget put into it. I love that, just like Wes Anderson, there's so much attention paid to the set design because you're seeing her progress as a woman, as a character, as a ramen cook, in tune with her store. And besides them being loving just for the fact that there's a really, you know, nice relationship between the two characters, they're also defined by their human perseverance and endurance. So they appreciate good, they take on the world, and they're all misfits because, you know, Tampopo wasn't successful with her ramen before. And again, we see this dynamic in Moonrise Kingdom. It's interesting to me that Taurus are drawn to these misfit characters who are hardworking, romantic, and through their perseverance get to their goals. And you might say, oh, that's just a very common movie trope. But if we're gonna compare the characters I dissected in the Aries video, you should watch that, with these characters, the bride from Kill Bill, Mia from Fish Tank, they were all really angry, violent, like cutting your throat energy. And here, so far, all the characters are people I want to be friends with. You know, they're romantic, they're ambitious, but their ambitions are very human. Like, I can relate to them. They want to open a restaurant, they want to fall in love and run away. So as you can see, like, I felt a lot more comfort when I watched these movies. It was a nice contrast from the Aries, no offense. Another really interesting fact that pertains to the visuals of this film and shows just how strong they are is that this movie is the reason why there are food stylists in Japan. It's a whole career now to go on a set, a movie set, and make sure the food looks delicious, beautiful. And you know those scenes in Ghibli that people tend to make like a lot of montages of, where they're making like ramen, Howl's making this amazing looking breakfast with the thick bacon slabs and the eggs? This movie does that in live action. So when you're watching it, you're honestly gonna crave ramen, so just a warning. But the fact that a Taurus is responsible for a career where people design food to make it look beautiful and good, again, like, I just have to spell that out because it's so, I just love that. That just makes me like believe in the magic of the world.
I'm the guy who, when I order like Chinese takeaway, they say, and for how many people is this? 6? And I say, no, just one. Maybe order a pizza or a curry later as well. And that's from the night before, where I drank nothing but pints and Jack Daniels.
Juzo Itami, comfort, romance, indulging in food, good feels, and again, an emphasis on visuals. So now we're gonna get into the girlies, the Taurus girlies, and the first one is the iconic Sofia Coppola. So Sofia, like Wes Anderson, is primarily known for, drumroll, her visuals. Not surprised. So I'm gonna bring up a few quotes where people discuss her visuals and why they're iconic and why they stand out. There's a particular aesthetic that runs through Sofia Coppola's work, whether she's turning her gauzy, feminized lens on the Southern Gothic of The Beguiled, or urban alienation in Lost in Translation, the Rococo excesses of Marie Antoinette, or disaffected suburban youths in The Bling Ring. Coppola is adept at creating heady atmospheres and worlds that feel fully realized, her characters veering between emptiness, desire, and repression. The frames in her films have a painterly quality, straddling the line between beauty and claustrophobia. So to further prove my point that she's known for visuals, let's hear what she has to say about her attraction to visuals. So during an interview, they asked her, "People who know you well say that you have always been a very visual person. Does directing come naturally to you?" She responded, "First and foremost, I love cinema for its role as a visual medium. What interests me most is telling a story and portraying my characters in images. Film also enables me to express myself as a person. Perhaps this is why I'm so comfortable behind the camera." Okay, it's becoming an eye roll at this point, but once again, a Taurus director who is known for their visuals. So I'm gonna get a bit into my opinion on her before I get into the movie that I watched, which is Lost in Translation. I'd never seen it. She's like one of the first directors I got into as a teenager because of how prevalent her movie screenshots were on Tumblr, and they were just so pretty. I mean, she's a woman. It was just so cool to see that. As much as I love seeing the pastries and the shoes from Marie Antoinette, the hazy romantic shots from Virgin Suicides, besides those parts of the films, I don't really feel any emotional attachment to her stories or her movies because to me, they honestly just feel like really pretty music videos. And she has often gotten criticism for this, especially after she won the best script for the film I'm about to discuss. But I just thought it was interesting to point out another director that is a Taurus whose strong suit isn't their dialogue. If I had to describe her visuals with a couple words, it would be soft, airy, luscious, gentle lighting, pastel hues, maximal decadence. So that kind of sounds like Wes Anderson to me. It's not a surprise that she's so similar to Wes Anderson because they grew up in the same circle and were famous during the same time. Because Anderson, as I said, collaborated with her Taurus brother, Roman Coppola, on a lot of movies and still does. And this was like such a popping time for indie filmmakers, like the Tumblr era. So it was really fun to kind of see their screenshots shared everywhere, like be a part of that in our own way. This was like such an era where rich people were still romanticized, like they were it girls. Like nepotism wasn't shunned on in this time. Like we wanted to be her. And now we shame the people that are nepo, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, if I could live in the Hilton in Tokyo too for a month and make a movie out of it just for the fun of it, I think all of us would. So I watched Lost in Translation, and I'm gonna get into what the movie's about before I talk about the movie. The film follows a lonely aging movie star named Bob Harris, played by Bill Murray, he's back to work with another Taurus, and a conflicted newlywed, Charlotte, Scarlett Johansson, who meet in Tokyo. Bob is there to film a Japanese whiskey commercial. Charlotte is accompanying her celebrity photographer husband. Strangers in a foreign land, the two find escape, distraction, and understanding amidst the bright Tokyo lights after a chance meeting in the quiet lull of the hotel bar. They form a bond that is as unlikely as it is heartfelt and meaningful. Through minimalist scripting and evocative cinematography, Coppola creates a rich, atmospheric narrative that transcends conventional storytelling. The film's ambiguous ending invites viewers to ponder the complexities of human connection, making Lost in Translation a timeless exploration of existential longing and fleeting intimacy. Once again, we find ourselves zoning out to a Taurus movie. Sorry, Sophia, but this movie is literally just a meditation on loneliness. And the fact that Charlotte is in a foreign country just emphasizes her loneliness, and it's intentional, of course, but when you're just kind of watching her zone out and look out a window, you also zone out. And when I watched Sofia Coppola's interviews as she talked about this movie, I kind of feel like she was zoning out too as she was making this and as she was talking about it. And I just kind of love that reoccurring thread in these Taurus films, but
you 100 times and you can't give up, and that's part of, I think, being a director. But it also makes it fun too when someone says no. It makes you, I'm gonna get it.
It's just kind of, like I said, like it's poetic, that is just showing us the beauty of that feeling, and it's just an entire film dedicated to these two people who have it and they find each other, and you're just kind of wallowing in this melancholic, chilled out, zone out feeling with them for about an hour and a half, and there's nothing more to it. It's just we met, we have this unexplainable connection because we're both lost in our lives and lost in translation. And yeah, you're just observing that, and there's literally no conflict. There's no meet cute moment that's like, oh, their eyes locked, they felt their heart rush. They do go to the airport, there's an airport chase scene, but again, like, there isn't like, Bill Murray doesn't sweep Scarlett Johansson off her feet and they kiss and it's like this lock of, we're gonna be together. It's just, it was nice to know ya. And yeah, so again, I'm not being swept off my feet by the Taurus chill energy, but I am definitely hypnotized this whole movie. There's like already a lot of videos and articles that talk about how Sofia Coppola really others the Japanese characters in this movie, and they're seen more as seasoning side characters and just kind of caricatures of Japanese people. You know, they really emphasize their lack of being able to pronounce L. There's like these really cartoonish interactions between Bill Murray and the photographer and him not understanding Bill Murray and vice versa, and it never gets deeper than that, you know? Like, she's not trying to make Japan a character. It's more about the dynamic between Charlotte and Bob, but some people kind of find that to be uncomfortable because she's a white woman in a foreign land, and again, like, they're just the exotic seasoning of this movie. They're nothing more. There's never a moment where we actually feel like these people have souls of their own and personalities, which is a bit of a shame considering how, you know, interesting Japanese culture is and how easy it is to put in some effort to make them characters. But yeah, it's definitely a very privileged perspective to have. So although there's a lot of discourse about this ignorance to Japanese culture, I honestly think it's all intentional, just again, to emphasize how lonely Charlotte and Bob are in Japan because they don't speak the language, they're in a hotel, they're very isolated. Yeah, it's just kind of meant to be the setting that amplifies this feeling. It's nothing more. So we're gonna bring Wes into this too, this discourse, because Gorgeous told me that he also uses exotic settings just to add some seasoning and to make his movies more, you know, colorful. And I guess this is prevalent in the Darling Unlimited.
Darjeeling.
The Darjeeling Limited?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie. I haven't seen all of Wes's movies.
Like Isle of Dogs too.
Also, oh my god, this is actually really prevalent in the Isle of Dogs, and it got a lot of controversy for that because he has a Japanese American character that's just, again, he doesn't get too deep into her identity as a Japanese American, and the setting is more just zestiness to the movie. And I don't know if this is just privileged white people or if it's Tauruses not caring to get deeper besides like the surface level of the aesthetics and the caricaturiness, like the potential of a culture just adding, you know, zest to a movie. I think it's a mix of both personally, but again, like, it's interesting that they're not into the underbelly of these cultures. They're more just like, ooh, I like how sushi looks, I'm gonna put it in my movie. You know, it's not deeper than that. And once again with these damn Tauruses, we have two stubborn individuals who seem to be literally at crossroads in their lives because they can't adapt to their circumstances, but are able to experience this together and get through it together because, like, clearly, after Charlotte and Bob meet, like, there's a sense of hope in their lives that maybe if Bob goes back to his marriage, he'll appreciate it or he'll end it. Charlotte will also, you know, she found the value in herself and she's aware now that she's capable of deeply connecting with a person. I'm sorry, it's in all these movies. And to me, this is just a Taurus defined, because a Taurus may be very chill, may be zone out, may come off as a rock, a chill rock, but they're such softies, you know, like, they want to snack with you, they want to cuddle, they like a good blanket. This film encompasses all those things. There's also a lot of tension between Charlotte and Bob that is never fully explored. It's teased a lot, like they sleep next to each other, they hug, and they have long, intimate conversations. So even when a Taurus isn't having people kiss with an egg yolk or having 12-year-olds kiss to Francois Hardy, there's still undeniable tension in this movie because Venus and lust, it comes hand in hand. So the final director we're going to talk about also has lush, lustful cinema, has a strong sense of visuals, but takes it further and utilizes objects and settings to a degree that plays into the storytelling. And that is Jane Campion. So Jane Campion is known for being one of the 3 women to have won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Shout out to Julia Decarnu for Titan and Justin Trier for Anatomy of a Fall. She also got a lot of Oscar buzz for Power of the Dog, which is another explicit object movie. So if you want to get more of that type of cinema, highly recommend that. So I watched The Piano, which is actually my first introduction to the piano cinematic universe, because we got the piano teacher, the piano player, like that could be a whole video of its own.
The pianist.
The pianist. Wait, is there a piano player then?
The whole thing is you can't play a piano because of the Holocaust.
But that's the pianist. Maybe I messed up. But I said piano player. Is that a movie? It's called Shine.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I hate the piano cinematic universe so much, even though I've only seen 2 movies. The Piano follows Ada, a mute woman, and her daughter Flora, as they suffer exile in New Zealand. They bring with them a piano, and Ada is then set to marry a rich landlord, but has a peasant fall in love with her in the process. Okay, so when I read this synopsis, I was pretty hyped for this movie because it's giving period piece drama. The poster is like a woman playing piano on the beach. It just looks so juicy. But I hate to say it, Miss Campion, but the romance did not age well at all. And this is the first Taurus movie in this list where I'm not feeling the romance. We're gonna get into that, and I'm surprised that Taurus did the romance dirty, but nobody's perfect. So as we mentioned, Tauruses are sensual beings. So even though this movie is about, you know, mom and daughter finding themselves in this foreign exotic land with these 2 men that they've never met yet have to, you know, she has to marry one of them. The main plot of this film is very sensual. Very. It's a very fan fiction-esque plot, but let me just tell you why it doesn't work. So Ada's relationship with George is primarily defined by the fact that he's holding her piano hostage. And like I said, she's a mute woman whose only voice, passion, love is the piano, and she's literally there against her will. But yeah, I mean, clearly like she's a really nice woman. She's raised a daughter all by herself through, you know, having disabilities. And the fact that she's taken advantage of in this dynamic where George takes the piano from her and tells her, the only way I will let you play is if you teach me. It initially does start with her teaching him how to play, but of course, guys gotta be bros, and he then starts this game of every time you teach me a lesson and you then want to play and, like, you know, do your thing on the piano, you have to take off an article of clothing. And yeah, this might be very like fan fiction-y, especially because it's the Victorian era. It's like you can't even show your ankle to a guy. It's like, oh, the ankle. But again, it's just such blackmailing. Like, I don't think that's sexy, personally. Like, if they had this attraction before that was very sincere and George was romantic and he proved himself worthy of Ada, maybe I would have. You know, Darcy has to go through a whole freaking arc. I'm sorry I bring up Darcy in every video, but he has to go through a whole personality shift to earn Elizabeth. Like, George just blackmails her and then ends up with her. I don't like that. So spoiler alert, I'm gonna get into how this film's ending doesn't make up or like leave an effective message for all the toxicness we just witnessed. So like I said, she's in a love triangle with 2 horrific toxic men. And when Alistair finds out, from her daughter, by the way, who her daughter like literally tells on the mom, which she won an Oscar for that, cool, but I couldn't stand that character. So after the daughter, Flora, tells Alistair that her mom is sleeping with George, his immediate reaction is to cut her fingers off with the axe. That was really, really hard to watch. It was horrific. It was literally a horror movie. It took me out. Like, it made all that beauty, poeticism just really uncomfortable, and it was really effective. So after that, you expect her to, you know, hate both these men, leave them, whatever. Like, you don't think there's gonna be an end game with any of them, right? But she ends up running away with George, or she's practically kicked off because she cheated. And they're on a boat, they have the piano with them, they're setting sail. As they're sailing away, she attaches the rope that the piano is tied on the boat with to her leg. And when they throw the piano offshore, because she doesn't want that piano anymore, it's like associated with so many horrible memories at this point, she also falls off the boat. So you'd think she's gonna sink for good because the piano is really heavy, right? And I was like, wow, this is so poetic. Like, these two terrible men sealed her fate, tainted her voice, like her only voice as a disabled woman in the Victorian times. And I was ready to cry. I was like, wow, I did not expect that. This is where Jane Campion's Taurus sensibilities and softness and romanticism got in her way. And she's even admitted to regretting this decision because she's pulled out by George and the crew. And then there's a flash forward to her living with George, la-di-da, happy ending. They're in love. And George has made her prosthetic fingers. So I'm a sucker for romance, as I've mentioned many times, and in a different movie I would have loved this ending, but we just saw this man take advantage of her for like 2 hours, and then we saw this other man chop her finger, so I just detest all the men at this point. So Jane, why did you give them a Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet kind of ending? Like, it made no sense. So this movie is explicit, melancholic, lush with visuals, and actually has dialogue that I remembered. But I can't deny that I still zoned out. I'm sorry. It's just such poetic cinema. I mean, you're seeing the beach, pianos, amazing costumes. It's so stunning. It looks like a painting, this movie. It looks like if you took a poem and scanned it and then brought it to life. Some parts also felt very dreamlike. And just the effort it probably took to take a piano across the sands, it was so worth it though. Like, I definitely will remember this movie for the visuals. So like Juzo Itami and his attention to setting, like Wes and his attention to setting, Jane Campion, outside of making such a poetic, beautiful world, she takes it up a notch by making the piano itself a character in this film. And she really utilizes the object of the piano in this movie, outside of it just being a stunning piece amidst this foreign land where everything is very jungly and beachy. You know, it's literally a metaphor for Ada's oppression as a woman in the Victorian times, and all the conflict in this film is tied to the piano. You know, like, her and the piano are one. So similar to Coppola's approach to culture, this film is also told through the lens of a white woman, and here we have white people coming into the colonized New Zealand, and there is again a complete lack of care or attention put into the Maori people, who are the indigenous Polynesian people of mainland New Zealand. Maori originated with the settlers from East Polynesia who arrived in New Zealand in several canoe voyages between 1320 and 1350. So again, we have a juxtaposition between the culture of the setting and the people that are coming into the setting, because here they're literally settlers who solely use the Maori people as slaves. And they're nothing more in this movie than slaves. So the only characterization that the Maori people have outside of being servants in the movie is that they do have a relationship with George, who's the peasant in this film, you know, juxtaposed with Alistair being the landlord, the aristocrat. And George is obviously still above them because he's white, and he's kind of like the bridge to the Maori people and to Alistair because he can understand their language, and he also has tribal tattoos, so he kind of helps them communicate amongst each other. But again, like, they're not really characterized outside their relationship with the white people in this movie, just like the Japanese people are with Lost in Translation. So it's interesting that both of these movies, and like we said, Wes Anderson uses cultures as like zestiness to the film, to the setting. Like, it's more just there to exotify it than for them to actually serve a crucial role in the story or to have a voice. So now I'm going to wrap up all the Taurian elements of these directors and just give you a summary of why the bulls are being bulls. Definitely, my main takeaway with all these films is that the cinematography and set design reign superior over the script, and the overall mood is usually very reserved and dependent on the visuals. These are all perfect films to zone out to and just be completely transfixed by. We can again conclude that all the movies have lustful elements, a melancholic tone or moments, follow a protagonist that is stubborn or determined, and are the most memorable and known for the beautiful visuals. You're gonna leave a Taurus film feeling chill, zoned out, and just like in a trance like they are 24/7. So I loved this after, you know, feeling really overwhelmed and scared after the Harry's movies. So my next video is definitely not gonna be as breezy, comforting, and chill as these movies, because The next sign is everyone's favorite sign to hate, Geminis. And a quick little teaser, I don't hate Gemini, so I'm really excited for this. See you next time.